Ladies, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our final panel of the day, Army Installations.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of this panel of Army leaders, I would like to thank each of you for taking time to join us today for the last panel of AUSA. Oh, don't seem so excited, right? We know it's been a long 3 days, but we are excited to share with you what's happening in our installations enterprise. Personally, I'm thrilled to be moderating the Warriors Corner, where we will discuss how Army installations are resilient and ready, supporting the warfighter today and tomorrow. I am joined by a powerhouse panel of Army leaders who have a diverse background in installation management, strategy, and policy, and I have the distinct privilege of introducing them to you now. Starting with the Honorable Rachel Jacobson, Assistant Secretary of the Army for Installation Energy and Environment, who will provide insights on our vision for installation and strategic direction our Army is taking to ensure our installations are able to transform at pace to meet the evolving requirements of warfighters. Next, we have the 17th Sergeant Major of the Army, Sergeant Major of the Army, Michael Weimer, who will provide perspective on senior leader direction and guidance and will discuss how we are revolutionizing how we approach installation transformation, ensuring our senior NCOs bring soldiers and families voices into our strategic level thinking, decision making, while also ensuring our installations are also designed to support the evolving needs of our mission. Representing our soldiers and families who live, work, and train on our 104 Army installations around the globe is our Installation Management Command Sergeant Major Jason Copeland, who brings with an impressive background as a Garrison Command Sergeant Major, the MCOM Pacific Command Sergeant Major, and now the MCOM Command Sergeant Major. Rounding out the panel for this afternoon's event is Sergeant Major Ruben Murillo, the Sergeant Major for the Headquarters Army G9 Director of Prevention, Resilience, and Readiness. DPRR is the Army's lead for prevention and quality for life. Sergeant Major Murillo brings with him 28 years of Army experience, including service as a Garrison Command Sergeant Major. And I am Sergeant Major Kelvin Wyndham, the Sergeant Major of Army Food Service at the Joint Culinary Center of Excellence. The Joint Culinary Center of Excellence serves as the lead organization for the Headquarters Department of Army G4 Army Food Program. I bring 23 years of food service experience and previously served as the Army Material Command G4 Sergeant Major. Today's discussion will be focused on the Army's vision for installation transformation and the initiatives we are implementing to support the needs of the Army and its warfighters today. At this time, I would like to turn it over to the Honorable Rachel Jacobson, and her panel for open remarks, and questions will follow. Ma'am.
Okay. Can you hear me okay? All right, wonderful. Thank you very much, Command Sergeant Major Wyndham, for those nice introductions. What I'm going to try to do is not only set the stage, but run the clock till SMA arrives, because he's the star of this party. Thank you all for being here. So installations, last but certainly not least, installations are essentially the backbone of what our Army does. Without strong installations that are resilient and that are ready, we can't do what we do. It's that simple. And it has been my real privilege and honor during my tenure as Assistant Secretary to visit so many installations all over the world. And boy, am I impressed. Really, overall, exceptional management, all sorts of innovation, and really, each one is unique, as you know. There's no two installations that are alike. One of the things we're doing right now is, among other things, we're updating our installation strategy. The first installation strategy document was issued a little over 4 years ago, and that was the first of its kind. But we felt like in the last several years, things changed. Things are changing rapidly with the way we need to manage our installations. Because if you think about it, just think about your own home. Maybe you've put in a new alarm system that's a simple ring system, right? Maybe you've installed new HVAC that's more efficient than the HVAC you had before. Maybe you put in a tankless water heater. Think about it. Maybe you put in new windows. Everything you might have done in your own home, multiply that by literally our hundreds of thousands of buildings and the vast acreage that comprises our installations. We need to keep updating. We need to keep modernizing. So whatever the vision was laid out for the original installation strategy, it's time for us to soon unveil Installations 2.0 is what we're calling it. Our Installation Strategy 2.0. Army Installation Strategy 2.0, AIS 2.0 is what it's going to be called. And it's going to focus on the same 3 lines of effort you know about and have heard about, but within those, we're going to make sure we're bringing fresh ideas and innovation and new partnerships to the table. And the 3 lines of effort are going to be support people. First and foremost, you've heard Secretary Wormuth mention this a couple of times over AUSA, and as well as the chief. For the Army, our biggest asset is our people, our soldiers, families, civilians, contractors, all the wonderful people that make up this Army family. And that means quality of life for our people. We're certainly aware that we've had challenges in housing and barracks, and we're trying to get after it. And you've all probably heard many of the ways we're doing that, but in this conversation, we might be talking about that some more if there are questions about it. We're also going to strengthen installation readiness and resilience. You know, we have a statutory obligation to maintain resilient installations. And if you think about that, the definition in the statute is basically resilience means being able to overcome injuries to the installation, if you will, threats to the installation, problems to the installation, to be able to overcome those. That's what resilience is. And there are so many ways we must make sure our installations are resilient. For example, we want to make sure every single installation has enough power to self-sustain for at least 14 days. And seeing what we saw in the last couple of storms, not to mention many storms before that, that is essential, because without power, we can't train, and then we can't deploy, and we can't do our work. So that's just one example of the way we must maintain resilient installations. And that also means we need to examine our infrastructure, our energy infrastructure, and our water infrastructure, because what's going on, what you can't see what's going on, is sometimes your worst problems, right? And then finally, we have to continuously transform and innovate. The biggest thing that has changed in the last 4 years is the way we use data, the way we collect data, the way data helps us. It's, enormous transformation over the last several years. And so if we don't have a good set of data that we can analyze, and that gives us a really accurate picture of the condition of our installations, then we don't even know what the risks are. You can't assess the risks if your data is inadequate. So that's another really important thing we have to do. And part of our innovation and our transformation also includes partnerships. We're increasing more and more the way we use partnerships with obviously our defense communities, but also formal AUSA agreements with state and local governments, partners with our utilities, there you go, partners with universities, partners with industry. Installations are like cities, and we have to make sure we're bringing everybody in who can make sure who can contribute the best of the best, so that we can manage these installations as they should be managed to support the Army of the future. And we have lots of partners along the way, and I'm looking at Lieutenant General Jones right there, so he's the guy. Right, but what I really wanted, what I'm super excited about for our AIS 2.0 is that we enlisted the NCO community. For us, that was essential because, frankly, making policy from, sitting at your desk in the Pentagon, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like it's that effective. And so we wanted to make sure that those who are closest to soldiers participated in this, not just participated in this, frankly, they drove it. They drove it. And so I'm super excited. It was a real pleasure. It's been a pleasure to work with the whole community, led, of course, by Sergeant Major of the Army. So I'm handing it over to you now.
Okay. Thanks, ma'am. And I'm sorry I was running a little bit late. It'd be easy for me to blame the chief, but that would be highly unprofessional of me. But I might have been with the chief. Thanks for that, ma'am. And I'll try not to be too redundant, and because I know we want to get to some questions. But that last part, I'll pick up right on the last part. I mean, I just got to give you a big shout out in a public forum like this. I think that was key, and I'm new to this. I'm new to the Pentagon. They finally got me, so I assumed, and that there's a saying about assuming. And when I came in and you said, "Hey, I have an idea. I want to do something differently," I was like, "I'm in. I will assist you however possible." Even to the point that somehow tomorrow morning we're doing a barracks summit tomorrow morning, are we not? Like we're finishing AUSA, and tomorrow morning, what time, Jason? 09. We're going into a barracks summit with all our senior non-commissioned officers, our G9 teammates, our MCOM teammates. The ACOM sergeant majors are participating in that. IE&E, obviously. I mean, it is a team sport, and that's how we're going to approach this. You just heard from Honorable Jacobson, it's a wicked problem. We wouldn't even be standing here right now if this were easy. We're trying to modernize our installations to be able to do what she just said. At the same time, we're trying to have direct effects on quality of life when it comes to barracks, infrastructure, just the things underground. Your point about the things underground, the things we don't see, became some of the things that concerned me more than just what I could see. Because just because a building looks old, my current house, doesn't actually mean that it isn't livable and it isn't still quality. And so looks can be deceiving. But we have, from Poland to Humphreys, Korea, we have massive responsibility in our infrastructure. And I have a completely new appreciation for what that means now. And that's for our warfighting readiness, which includes taking care of our single soldiers and our married soldiers. You can't do just one. You have to be able to do both. The readiness is connected. And so this installation strategy, what I like, is anchored in the why we exist, all the way down to we need some consistency in all those things we just talked about. To include, power generation, how do we survive storms, and then how do we protect ourselves from an adversary that has access now because there is no more sanctuary. Those are all real things that we have to put into a single strategy to help keep us a little bit more on track, if you will. Give us a bearing and an azimuth as Army senior leaders for every dollar we invest. It's that important for us. And so I'm proud of senior non-commissioned officers being a part of this, but I also expect a lot. And so we won't let you down. I'll stop there, ma'am, so we can move on.
So, Jason Copeland, Sergeant Major of Installation Management Command, all of those things that you've heard, what my role in all of this is, I'm the voice of those 104 installations that are out there. I represent all of those command teams supporting the senior commanders. I represent those civilian professionals that are out there working diligently each and every day to ensure that we understand the guidance and the policies that are coming down, but we're also providing that feedback so that they understand how we're executing a lot of this at those installations. So it's a very enlightening when you start to see things and how all of this is starting to come together. And I'm thankful for the communication and the dialogue, ma'am, and you bringing the senior NCOs in because we're the closest to the soldiers. We talk to them most often and their families. And then also with me, the civilian professionals that are working in those different areas that make up the installation and how we can get after that. Do they have the resources to be able to do their job adequately? What is it that we need to do to kind of utilize the data to make informed decisions? Are we collecting all of that in a timely manner to make sure that we're getting it to the Army senior leaders, and then that will drive the policy and the guidance, and then we can see the return on investment because our installations are thriving and families are able to do what they need to do on the installation while the soldier concentrate on those war fighting things that they need to do to get out there and get after what we are asking them to do. So thank you, and thank you for coming out. Like, this is a big crowd, a lot larger than what I expected to be out here. So I'm gonna pass it over to my battle buddy, Ruben.
Thank you. My wife always tells me not to yell in the mic, so if I yell in the mic if it's too loud, I apologize. I got a bit loud voice. So Ruben Moore, the Senior Enlisted Advisor to the Director of Prevention, Resilience, and Readiness. That is a long title. It's called the DPRR, okay? So what does that do? So we focus primarily on the prevention continuum, how we look at harmful behaviors, getting to the left of the boom of harmful behaviors, while also incorporating services for family members, family members, soldiers, DA civilians. And how does that all go into installations? Well, you heard the term before, happy house, happy spouse, right? So that's kind of what we really focus on, the quality of life for soldiers, quality of life for family members, DA civilians, and that customer service and interaction that really we have on a daily basis with our community. And that's really important for us. So getting the feedback from the field, working with Installation Management Command, AMC, and having those communications back and forth, left and right, opening the dialogue and talking about the feedback from the down below and what's needed and the resources available. So we really focus on that so that way we can work together for the community, for the Army family as a whole. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Look forward to the discussion.
And thank you, this dynamic panel. As you can see, I don't think it's any question you're going to be able to ask this group of professionals that they can't answer, right? So I'm going to ask the first question, and then I'll turn it over to you all out there in the audience. So the first question to any member on the panel is, how will the Army Installation Strategy 2.0 improve living conditions for soldiers and their families?
In every way imaginable. No, I mean, that's the most important question, right? That is the most important question. What we are doing in the way we're approaching right now, the change in, let's just say, the way we're managing our barracks, for example, where we're going to have civilian barracks managers at every installation. We've already hired 75 and another 130 or so in the next fiscal year. Just by way of one example, the dollar commitments that we're making to building new barracks, but also making sure that we restore older barracks that are in need of restoration to a more livable condition. These are the kinds of things that we need to memorialize. We need to make sure we're memorializing how we do that, and we need to make sure that it's informed by all of this important information that we're collecting, to be more data-driven. We've been meeting, for example, with a lot of entities today who can help us with building controls, right, to make sure that we have full visibility as to the way our buildings are being managed and what we need to do to fix things right away. So we're going to use better data. We're going to use more partnerships to help with quality of life. And with respect to our family housing, the family housing that is privatized, we've been having a lot of conversations with the privatized housing providers, and not just conversations, but we've been holding them accountable to make sure that they get after repairs, that they get after restoration as needed, and then when there's a need for additional financing, that we have their backs and we're able to help them secure more financing. So but all of the ways that we're going to modernize our installations, that we're going to make sure we use data, that we're going to make sure we use partnerships, and we're in all of this, the transformation that we're making will make installations a better place to live and work.
Yeah, I'll add one thing. Alex, raise your hand. I'm gonna call you out. So, strategy and implementation are two different things, and I think that's important to at least acknowledge up front. We're already in implementation phase with some efforts, and Honorable Jacobson just alluded to a few of those. But we needed to get the strategy updated to hold us accountable so that we stay on azimuth, right? And if you've ever been out in the woods and done some land navigation, you're only going to deviate so far before you become lost. And I think that's what a strategy is supposed to help us do. The implementation concept, which, again, Alex, I'm going to give you a shout out. We've already started working, and we've started working with the same group of leaders we acknowledged up in the beginning. Everybody from the ForceCom G4, Andrea, raise your hand, involved in all of this at the ACOM levels. We're bringing everybody in early, to Honorable Jacobson's point, early and often with a governance mindset so that we're not making these changes without having informed risk discussions. And I think it's important because there's no more money coming. We're dealing with CRs and new starts, and we know the fiscal reality of where we are, and I am learning it. I am probably the one learning it at the quickest speed because it's required. But I think it's important to acknowledge. And so whether it's Build Back DPW, whether it's working with our privatized partners to increase response times to work orders, that'll all be in there so that there is accountability. Accountability for us, but accountability for our privatized partners, accountability for our installations and the commands associated, the senior mission commands. So that's one thing I just wanted to add and kind of add a little context to that question.
So SMA, if I could add, from our standpoint and implication behind a lot of this and what we are already doing, a lot of work has gone into barracks, and we just want to ensure that we're being good stewards of the funding that we have. The Secretary has given us 100% sustainability of the barracks. What does that mean to our DPWs? And that's why it's important that we're building back our DPWs. Those facility managers that you heard about, they're going to work with the units and ensure that there's some continuity there so that soldiers can concentrate on their warfighting skills and not have to worry about maintaining the buildings. So they're going to be the ones who are assist them in saying, hey, here's that connection to the DPW. We can get the contact team out there. We're educating and informing our soldiers a lot more now on utilizing the platforms and the tools that they have when they put in a service order, how that's going to get to the facility manager and then the DPW, and then we can get out there and get after that. Every Monday is Housing Monday in MCOM. And so we sit down with all of the housing partners and we go through scorecards and we hold them accountable about, hey, how are you reacting to the service orders that soldiers are saying that they have in their homes? What are we doing to improve on the quality of homes? And then what are we going to do in the out years to ensure that everyone that is coming to that installation will have the opportunity to live on post should they have that? So taking that scorecard, we also developed a barrack scorecard now, and it's going to be data driven. It's going to be in the system. So now we can see ourselves, and then the CG and I, I've been called Sergeant Major Barracks so many times I can't imagine, but he gave that platform so that I could give the SMA, Honorable Jacobson, and the Army senior leaders the information and the data real time so we can make those informed decisions on where, for the resources, the precious resources that we have, we can put them in the right places.
So on top of that, you look at implementing resources and systems and practices and processes. It's also how we're taking a look at our resources and where they're actually located. And I'll use BOSS as an example. Better opportunities for single soldiers. Can I get an advocate? Everybody's hand should be raised right now. Everybody's hand should raised. Okay, so for boss, all right, you don't want to put your boss headquarters and your boss resources and boss events across the way where there's no boss soldiers, where there's no single soldiers. So you really want to focus on where those events are going to take place, where their headquarters location's at, right there in the middle of where your barracks soldiers are at, where your single soldiers are at. And it gives them the opportunity to take, hey, just a simple identity. And I'll use an example at Fort Wainwright. We moved it from the north side of the installation, if anybody knows Fort Wainwright, to the south side, right at the Welcome Center where every single soldier who in process, brand new, could have the boss headquarters right there. So that's just an example of how we are implementing this strategy. Thank you.
Okay, great. So in the spirit of the Honorable Rachel Jacobson in the SMA, and I'm looking at Command Sergeant Major Sutters out there in the audience, right? We want to hear from you all. We want to hear from the field. What is the field asking? What does the field want to know? And we'll go to you all. So first question.
Thank you. I heard everybody talk about the importance of feedback, and we've seen a lot of changes in installations in the last year that have focused on unaccompanied barracks and single soldiers, and some of that support everything from policies like air conditioners at JBLM to new barracks at Fort Johnson. There's a range of changes that happen, but a lot of these changes come after there's a significant soldier issue. Fort Cavazos basically instituted public transportation. That's great, but it came after kind of a systemic problem that soldiers were having that wasn't being addressed. So I hear a lot about feedback from you, and I know that a lot of times soldiers might not trust the systems. A lot of times they're just apathetic. The ICE website looks like it was built in the 90s. So I'm just wondering if there are any new strategies or anything new you're using to reach the soldier at the soldier level to hear about these problems that are obviously, might be widespread in an installation before it comes to a boiling point.
Absolutely. So really, that's what I was speaking on when I said we're educating the force now on the platforms that they can use. So we have My Army Post app that's going to come out. It is piloted at 8 installations currently. As a matter of fact, let me give a shout out to our booth right behind us, and you can give us some feedback on there. Just scan the QR code. But it has all of the things on there that they would need in order to have their voice being heard. That's the one thing that we always concentrate on, is making sure that their voices are heard. And if we don't, I'm an optimist by nature, so my thing is I want them to be able to go to their team leaders and squad leaders first when they have a challenge, and that their team leaders and squad leaders know that if they're using the ARMA to get the maintenance done in their building, that is going somewhere they can get the soldier themselves are getting feedback on when we're going to come out and complete that work order, and then they can give us feedback on if the work order actually worked before there's a real problem. We hear a lot of times that folks, they don't trust the system, but we just want to get it to a point where they are able to trust the system because they see their NCOs taking care of them, and that it's real time right then and there when they have a problem versus when it got enlarged and then, they're asking for help in other means.
Yeah, so I'll add a little bit to that. So I think it's also important to remember that if you've seen one installation, you've seen one installation, and we have a lot of turnover. We're a big Army. And we'd love to get everybody to hang out at one post or camper station for 5+ years, but that's not the reality of where we are as an Army. Although we are taking a look at some of that, how do we stabilize people in locations? Because I think there's a key piece to that, the trust that he just alluded to. That's critical. That's why we extended Command Sergeant Major positions to 36 months to try to stabilize that leadership a little bit. To get after some of that, but that's going to be a 25 and beyond. We won't see that for a bit. So on that note, though, I think it is a trust issue sometimes. Some of it can be the chain of command that's not as engaged as we always think we are. That's just the honest to God truth. Everybody deserves that. Again, all 3 compos are almost 1 million people. It is a big institution, but I don't think that's always it. I do think it's a combination of, well, I trust my chain of command, but I'm waiting. I put a work order in. We don't have enough DPW workers. There's a higher priority or crisis on the installation, so pick your season at Wainwright, or hurricane season right now. Think about what's not happening for a basic work order that just got reprioritized based off 2 storms that went through here recently, right? And so I think it's a combination of all those things. Soldiers and their families want feedback. They want to know where their work order is. They want to know their chain of command is doing something with something that they've raised to their attention. And so that's our goal. Decrease those times, make sure we're managed properly at the installations based off the requirements they have, oftentimes unique, and build back trust with the command teams.
And I think that is important. To your point, the feedback that we've received is why we're making change, why we're adapting, why we're making things happen now. Especially, it's important because I grew up in an Army where there was no why in my response to an execution, to a task. Okay, but as we evolve, we all know that task and purpose is important for our soldiers to have. So we give them task, we give them purpose. We allow them to understand the why of what they're doing to see the big picture. So this is where the feedback comes in. This is where that loop kind of creates the change and us adapting to that change. So I think that's important. Thanks.
Hi, Allison Park with National Defense Magazine. I know you guys already mentioned that you're in the implementation phase of this new strategy, but can you provide any details of when exactly you're planning on unveiling that strategy, like any ballpark dates or estimates you can tell me?
Good question, Allison. The implementation phase is being worked on right now, but I think what was meant by that response is we're already doing a lot of it. So the strategy itself is meant to kind of codify that, is meant to put that in writing and say this is to help everybody understand this is our strategy to look at installations of the future. I expect we'll release it, I want to say, let's hopefully say end of calendar year. I'm looking at Alex. End of calendar year, before end of calendar year. And the implementation plan will take a little longer, but it's already being worked on. So in other words, we're not waiting for the release of the strategy to start the implementation plan. But one thing is really important. The reason it's taking so long is I can't think of any entity in the United States Army that will not touch this installation strategy. That's how widely we're circulating it for coordination.
Okay, thank you, team. So this concludes the Warriors Corner for the installation strategy. I want to thank the dynamic panel we had up here. Thank you very much for taking your time out to come up here and educate us on the Army installation strategy. And thank you all out there, in the audience for standing back. For staying back on the last day of AUSA, the last panel. It means a lot. This is important work for you all to take back out and educate the field. All right, thank you.